podcast, a strange conversational podcast that involves me as your host at the Bad Barrister and my co-host, cohort in crime, author extraordinaire, Simon Canton. Hello, Simon. Welcome to
Hello,
another episode.
Thanks. Welcome to you too.
Yes. I didn't think we'd actually make it to 18. I don't know why 18 is a strange number, but
legally drink.
Yes, and we can call this the legally drinking episode. Certainly last week we had quite an interesting episode, if anyone wants to check it out, where we went in depth effectively on two topics, that being E3, which seemed to be the news bomb for last week, and of course Game of Thrones, which finished this season, just finishing there. We're not going to do that. We're going to try and keep up a number of topics this week. We're going to do quick fire rounds this week. We're going to try and keep it within 60 minutes or shorter. We're going to try and cover a whole range of topics because there's been some interesting new stuff that dropped this week, stuff that had been on our radar. We've talked about previously in the show, but I suppose we might have missed because last week we were concentrating on the big reveals or finales in Game of Thrones. And we're going to just talk about a number of things that happened this week, a number of news items. Obviously, the most interesting thing that happened this week on the TV front, and certainly we've talked about previous seasons, although not at the time, is that of True Detective. True Detective Season 2 is back in Europe and in America since this Sunday gone. I know when we started this podcast, the first season wasn't on. We've talked about it in passing. Since then I think we've had an entire episode which has at least a good proportion about the reconnaissance. Again, this series is an entirely new cast and a totally different story. Again, Matthew McConaughey has a producing role on this, but certainly I watched this first episode of season 2, and obviously new actors in particular, concentrating on Vince Vaughn, Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams, and this guy from who I'm always blank on his name. Obviously was in the Battleship movies and also in the John Carter movies, which and again, he's an actor that
that's what I recognized him from. I was going through the whole thing going, where do I know him from?
Taylor Kitsch. And he's an actor that came out of nowhere a few years ago. It was in this kind of big blockbuster with Rihanna, Battleship, John Carter, which was this actually one of those malign movies like Waterworld, which is not a great movie, but actually it's certainly not as bad as maybe the poor box office showing would have shown. In that, I mean, not trying to rewrite history, but Waterworld wasn't wasn't as bad. We've all seen worse movies than Waterworld. And sometimes these movies, they're not as good as they should be or what they're promised to be. But at the same time, the history books in respect of movies can be very unkind to certain types of film, including The Lone Ranger, for instance, stuff like that, which basically has got panned as being this big, huge multi-budget epic that no one really wanted to see. Again, not a particularly great movie, and not particularly, but at the same time, not hugely flawed in any big way. One of my favorites from when we were growing up, it was that Hudson Hawk, Bruce Willis, shambolic thing where lots of money was paid on that movie and no one particularly wanted or liked it, and yet I still think it's one of his best movies of all time. But moving forward, Taylor Kitsch in it, Rachel McAdams, Vince Vaughn, and obviously Colin Farrell. And I think I'd be very interested to hear what your impressions of the first episode were. Just on my short telling of it would be this. From the very beginning, what's very interesting is I got in just trying to deal with it chronologically, just talking about this particular season. The first thing I missed was when the credits rolled, and I missed the original T-Bone song from the first season, which would not be my kind of music at all, right? But I have to say, similar to that sort of True Blood opening theme tune that they had throughout their series, it was a kind of a catchy theme tune. Again, the current or the new title theme tune for this show, just again, to be fair, sometimes these things have to catch on, often like True Blood, etc. Oh, what's this crappy song? And then you get into it, you know. But again, it didn't necessarily, you know, sort of catch my eye. I felt it was odd, and then it kind of was unsettling. And even the title credits weren't what I liked about this. But again, those are something where, you know, it's something different, and I would certainly give it time before I would castigate that. But moving forward into the episode, I'll ask you about that in a second. Moving forward into the episode, or just my general impressions without getting into the specifics before I hand it over to you, is it seemed to be, there was an element of Twin Peaks about it. There definitely seemed to be mystery. There was no doubt that they didn't want to tell you everything about what was going on. They just wanted to introduce you very shortly to each character so that they could effectively present them together as having to deal with some mystery that was going to be sort of started out in the entire episode. So this wasn't a situation where we turn up in the first 5 minutes and there's a murdered body and you see, oh, there's a detective and there's a police officer and they're here to solve this mystery or the start of this mystery. This is a situation, in my view, where the mystery didn't happen until the last reel of this episode. And prior to that, we were being introduced to potential suspects or potential problem protagonists. But certainly, and therefore it was a very slow burn, incredibly slow burn. But interesting nonetheless. I mean, would you agree with any of that? Or I mean, was there particular things that irked you? Were there things you liked about this episode? What were your general impressions?
So this episode, I think, was just meh, which, you know, it wasn't bad. It was just, so I'm not a crime fan. I don't like crime stuff. And the reason why I liked True Detective up until the finale, which was atrocious, was that it wasn't a traditional crime thing. Like what you said about the credits is kind of a symptom. So the credits for season 1, I actually watched all the way through. So I got HBO Nordic, so I can skip them. And each time when I was watching season 1, I sat through the credits because they were so original and cool and really, like, you wanted to sit through them. Like, you wanted to see the iconography and everything that they were dealing with. And this was kind of it was as if someone had seen a cool idea and then decided to copy it, rather than actually coming up with something original, which was kind of what then I thought the rest of the episode was a bit like. It was a standard crime thing. Like, it wasn't bad. It was just a standard crime thing. I'm just not into crime. So the reason why True Detective season 1 was so great was because it wasn't. I mean, the bit where he's in season 1 where he's going through the neighborhood and it's all like, I don't know, it was cut into like 5 different shots or whatever, and you know, he's sneaking through the neighborhood and busting through houses and stuff. It was all incredibly original. The
sort of thing you just didn't see on TV, because this whole sort of cinematic almost pretend one shot kind of continuous thing just wouldn't happen on CSI Miami. It definitely had an original, risky vibe about it, filmic, you know.
And it was filmed in a place we don't normally see things filmed as well, which was great for the cinematography. This is filmed in LA, which we've seen 6 billion trillion times, which I did like the shots of the industrial areas that were kind of the scene when they're going between 2 different characters. They kind of show the aerial shots of the industrial. I like those. But that's like damning with faint praise, the fact that I liked some industrial shots. I also liked the motorcycle cop. I thought he was the most interesting character. I'm wondering why he has to take Viagra with his girlfriend when he was hitting on the girl in the car. Is he like, so is he gay, or is he not gay, or is he just not fancy his girlfriend, or?
Well, was he hitting on that person in the car? She definitely was hitting on him, and then you just see him being
getting reprimanded for accepting a blowjob for.
That's because she just told the story. I wasn't sure if that was because he went through with the deal, which is exactly what you're saying, or he didn't, and she just cried wolf about him. That was left open because you never got to see them going to her place or whatever, you know.
But there would be if he hadn't gone to her place, there would be easily evidence that he wasn't at her place. Like, I don't know, even arresting other people or something.
I agree. I was keeping options open about that. I mean, clearly he's had some shady past before. He's got burns over his body. You know, he has issues in the bedroom in that regard, despite having an absolutely gorgeous girlfriend. And you know, in general, he's being set up for the viewer's point of view to be somebody to question. And almost at the end scene where he comes, you know, he's effectively driving in the, you know, in the LA roads, you know, at night without lights.
That was awesome. That was a really good scene. Like, that was, I was going, oh my God, turn your lights on, dude, you're gonna die.
But there's an element of almost sort of early Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, you know, Weapon 1, where he has this, you know, kind of almost I want to kill myself type of mentality, you know, that kind of Martin Riggs kind of, this is a guy who is on the edge. He's not a Martin Riggs character. Martin Riggs is 100% on the edge all the time. This guy's a little bit more controlled. You can see him in that respect, but away from people who are watching him, i.e. at night when he's on his bike on his own, you can see this kind of character coming out. And I wonder about that. And I mean, are we meant to think, you know, I mean, look, the end scene, the entire episode is written to bring everyone to the same point at the end of the episode, right? The only person who we've been introduced to in any significant way who does not end up in the final reel of the episode is Vince Vaughn, right? Ultimately, the protagonists that we've been introduced to, and we've been introduced to Colin Farrell, a cop whose wife was molested in around the same time his wife conceived his child, ? And we're certainly meant to, everybody thinks his child is not his child. There's no doubt about that. That's the whole idea. Like logic would dictate that his son is not his son. But again,
well, I wouldn't see the wife. If the wife is ginger, then there's some question.
Of
if
course.
The wife is blonde or brunette or black hair, then you go, well, then his son is not his son. And he pretends to the psychiatrist or whatever, oh yeah, I love my son, he's my son anyway. But we can see that he's easily able to lie.
Yeah, exactly. So for instance, it seems very clear if you were going down the normal trope way, which would be his wife was raped, and his son their son was conceived on that day of the rape, the rapist being the father, right? I'm just simply leaving room at this stage for that just to be a point of issue and maybe not just quite a clear point. But it would certainly seem to be that seems to be the major emphasis. And you can clearly see that Colin Farrell, in around the flashback time, this happened to his wife. And he then has this perchance meeting with a sort of a lowly, on his way up, underworldly type, criminal type, which is Vince Vaughn, who we then later see to have risen up a bit towards to being a much more upstanding criminal type of an individual. And that's how we're introduced to those two. Colin Farrell, this incident, him being a junior cop, now a detective, clearly this had a huge had a huge effect on him. It effectively ruined his marriage. It seems clear that he's separated, or if not divorced, from his wife. He has limited visitation rights with his child. There's some other boyfriend in the picture that we were introduced, which is some other actor that we've seen in loads of other things, although I can't place him. And that's Colin Farrell, that's Vince Vaughn. So you've got, cop, criminal. You can see that Colin Farrell is on the edge, almost like a sort of a Mel Gibson, again, not quite the same, more like somebody who's just had a terrible life, snorting drugs, on the edge, will do anything. His child gets bullied. He beats up the kid's dad. We've seen that. This guy is not going to play by the rules at all, right? Rachel McAdams similarly is damaged. So far, the only person we've been introduced to who hasn't been damaged by anything is Vince Vaughn. I mean, we haven't seen any history of that damage yet. Rachel McAdams, just to finish the whatever, seems to have some issues, which again they're not telling you straight out. She's got some issues. you know, her sister is into a sort of a sex ring filming thing. That coincidentally, and I know you probably weren't too happy about that, but I mean, you know, runs into a sex ring, and her sister happens to be there, and then her sister.
I thought she went there because her sister was in it.
Yeah,
I thought her sister was in this thing, and she went, "Oh my God, my sister's a prostitute. Let's bust that up." And it's not; it's just webcams.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wasn't sure whether it was just like, obviously she's a cop, so she would have gone there. Okay, maybe not that job, but you know, say la vie, maybe she was following that up. And then she has some dad who's some hippie do kind of guy, and again, David, is it David Morris? Is that guy's name? Who's always a brilliant actor. He obviously was in Dancer in the Dark, and a number of obviously. Very, very, what's his name?
Morse.
Yeah, exactly. He was in House as well. Did stint on that. I mean, there's some obviously some great acting going on there. And he kind of was playing this kind of hippy dippy kind of guy. She's no time for that. So she's got damage issues. We haven't exactly delved into all of those things, but certainly there's been some sort of environment to that. Taylor Kitsch, you've already identified his sexual issues. We know he's got scarring over his body. We know he has almost a death wish kind of a thing, or certainly.
And he was a soldier as well. I mean, his girlfriend says that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, originally I thought this was by virtue of maybe, you know, something he picked up on the job, but clearly, you know, he's in bed. They talk about that wasn't when he was in the army, or this was before. And then you're thinking, okay, so he's got some injuries from the army. He's got some issues before the army. Was that his dad? You know, what was this? Where is his background? So we're all asking questions about all of the protagonists. But it seems to me, in terms of damage, nothing's been alluded to Vince Vaughn, but everybody else is damaged. But ultimately, the episode is the whole purpose of the episode. Maybe that's why it's such a slow burn, and maybe it doesn't. Was just simply to get these 4 cops or 3 cops. Well, Rachel McAdams, Colin Farrell, Taylor Kitsch, together over this dead body. And there's also this kind of partner cop guy as well, and I'm wondering how much he's
expecting to just get shoved aside.
Yeah,
because they seem to be the 3 main characters, like that they're going to work on it somehow.
The sort of juxtaposition of maybe Vince Vaughn and how that will interact. And what's interesting is the kind of this final shot where they're almost kind of scrolling around them, almost circling around the 3 characters, where they're all looking at each other, almost as if it was like a video game kind of cut. You know, as in what's he like? What's she like? Everyone trying to size up each other because they've never met each other before.
Yeah, that's it on the nose there. Like,
but it is a lot to do now.
I think what might be the case, and I'm just guessing, is that with True Detective season 1, the creator, set the sights so high for the season that then he had no chance of fulfilling them because he didn't have a clue how he was going to end it. That with season 2, he's starting low in a way, not like low, not bad. It's, as I said, it's not bad. It's just okay. So he's starting low so that way he doesn't get it in the neck again. Because I have to imagine the uproar over the bad ending of season 1 might have gotten to him a little bit. But I mean, I'll watch the next episode, but I could easily see myself, if it continues being just a standard crime show, I can see myself dropping it. I mean, True Detective, I gave a chance because it had such a cool trailer. And then it just gripped me from the first episode because it was so different.
Yeah, I mean, go on, sorry.
When season 1 ended and had such a bad ending, I went, okay, well, I'll watch season 2 just to see, in case this was just a misstep and the guy's got something to say. But
I mean, this might be an season where the backgrounds of these individuals might be more important. And I only say that for this reason, that the exact same episode in season 1 would have just simply been Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey, being called to a dead person, scene of a dead person on a bench in the middle of the night in LA, and they'd be looking over his body. Which is almost the opening of the scene in season 1. You see them, they're surrounded in the first 5, I haven't seen it in a year, but in the first 5 minutes, you see them and all the rest of the cops surrounded a tree, and there's the dead woman. That happened in the first 5 minutes of episode 1 in season 1. Here we had 60 minutes to get to the first 5 minutes of the previous episode. So the question here is, like, before what they did was show the two individuals and then work on the backstory throughout the next 8 episodes. We're already getting to the backstory. We've already kind of met some of the protagonists before the protagonists themselves meet. Is there a purpose to any of that? And we'll see what happens. But I mean, certainly
that's the problem. They had mystery in the first.
Yeah.
The first season had mystery. So going, okay, what's going on here with Rust? Why is he so weird? And Marty, and what's Marty's deal? And Marty seems normal, and then you work out Marty's not normal. So you had Rust's weirdness, and then you kind of, as you're figuring out Rust's weirdness, Marty's weirdness kind of crops up, and you're going, okay, what's Marty doing? Whereas here it was just, hey, here's our characters, and here's all their backstories, and here's what makes them weird. There you go.
Yeah, well, right. The mystery, I mean, you criticized the mystery in the end in season 1, and basically what you said is, okay, well, we all thought it was going to be like this and that, but when you boil down to what they actually talked about, it wasn't much of a mystery, right? And therefore, the only thing that was redeeming about season 1 was, well, we had a bunch of cool characters, and we got to see how they developed over a period of time, right? Yeah. And maybe they're very much leaning into that, and they're going to, you say, well, we're going to try and improve the mystery aspect of it, whatever it may be, because we know jack about that at this stage. But the characters, we're going to definitely double down on character development. And look, you know yourself, even if a throughway of a story in any TV show is a bit ropey, but you absolutely love the development of the characters, and they're doing something new, not just Lethal Weapon-esque, because already I've identified 2 characters which have a very much a Martin Riggs thing, and you're kind of going, well, that's fine, but like if it's just the same, if we've just got 2 Martin Riggs in this show, I mean, like, what the hell, you know what I mean? So, again, look. Interesting television, interesting premise. Let's see where it all goes. So we're going to change up topics now, and having put Game of Thrones to bed, we're going to talk about Game of Thrones again, but we're going to talk about the video game by Telltale. And I know you've been playing it this week. What episode have you played? Or what episode?
I've played about another 40 minutes maybe since the last week's episode. And there's 2 reasons. The first is it's not gripping me at all. And the second is that Telltale has totally terrible checkpoint saves. So they don't allow you to save everywhere. So normally what I would do is I would wait until, there's one of those scenes where you're meant to go around and talk to people, and then I go, okay, then I'll quit and I'll do something else. Because I don't have a lot of time to kind of play in a row. I can't play a whole episode in a row.
I totally know.
So then I come back to it, and it hasn't saved. So then I have to sit through the cutscenes again, and I'm going, okay, I pressed that first, and then I pressed that in the conversation, and then I pressed that in the conversation. Okay, come on. Which is like 5 minutes long, because it's essentially an interactive story.
Yeah.
And I've no interest in the 2 characters that I'm currently following, the sister in King's Landing and the young lord of the house. I think they're both dull, and as well, I'm choosing all the wrong stuff, but I feel like I'm not being given the option to choose the right stuff as well. It's kind of, I was thinking about this earlier. It's like there's a game called Crusader Kings 2, which is all this kind of politics stuff, and making alliances and deciding who you're going to betray, and which kingdom you're going to try and invade, and can you do it by diplomacy or marriage, or can you do it this way or the other way? And it feels like that is what I imagined Game of Thrones, the game, would be like. And instead, I'm kind of, so you're one of the lowest of the low, I mean, in this game. You're a house of nobles, but only barely. So you've got no power at all. And then whatever I chose seemed to be wrong. So if I chose to be aggressive, they went, oh my God, you're too aggressive. If I chose to be, to try and make friends, it was, oh my God, why are you trying to make friends? And if I chose the middle one, they went, oh my God, you just say anything to try and get us on your side. I was like, what the hell can I choose then?
Yeah.
I mean, it reminded me of the people who say, they were saying, oh, fans of Harry Potter want to go to Hogwarts. Fans of the Narnia books want to go to Narnia. fans of Game of Thrones do not want to go to Westeros. Like, no, I'm fine. I'll stay here. And that's kind of what I'm feeling like in this game. Like, okay, you really can't win, so it's not really an enjoyable game.
Yeah, I'm at episode 4 at the moment, and I think you might be a couple episodes or one episode behind. Is that right?
No, I played 2.5 hours of the first episode, and I'm thinking, oh, probably won't play more of this.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll give you the top hit on that one, which is like I play a lot of Telltale games. So at the moment, I'm playing Tales of the Borderland, which actually got its newest episode the other day, but I haven't downloaded it yet and I haven't played it. And that is brilliant, even though I don't like Borderlands. And I've said that before. It's brilliant. It genuinely is really good. And it does all the Telltale stuff well, but it's really good. And I, again, not invested in the Borderlands, kind of franchise before that or anything. Game of Thrones I have as well. I'm into episode 4, and I will tell you this: it suddenly got good, but it's only gotten better in around 3 and 4. And I won't tell you why, but I found Game of Thrones, particularly the first episode and second episode, incredibly ponderous. Because first of all, it's almost like identical to the TV series, except you don't know anybody. So actually, for the first 2 episodes, I was like you're switching between characters and everything. You're like, what the hell is going on? Now, it's great when you see a few familiar faces like Ramsay Bolton here and there, but and a few familiar faces here and there. But and Daenerys crops up more laterally in the episodes I've been involved in lately. There's a great character, Beshka, who you don't control, but is part of your group, which is and she's quite cool. And it's definitely gotten way better and definitely got much more plaudits recently, laterally, particularly this episode 4. But again, that's a long time. Like I said, episode 4 means you've had to play 6 hours minimum just to get to episode 4, for the 2-hour installment of episode 4. So, which brings you up to 8. And I've finished episode 4. It's definitely the best one. There's a better action sequence and there's a lot more pace in that. There's some really the pacing switching between, where King's Landing, or let's say Knots Landing, Westeros, whatever, Dorne, whatever. That's kind of pick up again a bit like the TV show. And you start going, oh, right, okay. And you're not just ponderously, sort of staying in one area. And also, for basically three episodes, a lot of the people you were in control of were just getting the ass kicked out of them no matter what they were doing, Yeah. And if you, and I agree with you. In a lot of the Telltale games, if you play the game, you usually succeed. So if you're playing Walking Dead and you kind of go, okay, let's be cautious, let's be good to everybody, let's keep on, let's tell the truth here, let's whatever. Generally, the game kind of, you as a gamer realize this is what I need to do to get by, and it usually works. But here, I agree with you. Like, you'd be having conversation with Marjorie Terrell, and you'd be like, oh, this is the right thing to do. And all of a sudden, it's like, it's turned on you. Will you say anything? And you're like, hold on a second, this is a game. I did what I was expected to do, and it's like, it's just turned around.
She's to do it, and then she gets pissed off at you for doing it. Well, you told me to do that, and I didn't have an option for like a kind of a. There's only 4 options, one of which is silence, so you don't have an option. Like if you look,
I know there's a lot of cheating there because, or sorry, can I put it this way? There's never really much choice in a Telltale game, but normally you thought, well, things may happen the way they're going to happen anyway, but at least if I said X, there'd be some response, which is they may not like it, but like, you wouldn't be kind of like put on edge. There was some interesting stuff about the most recent episode. I definitely think that's one which only gets better as you get further into it, and certainly that's true. But it took a long time. I certainly was very much like, Game of Thrones is not doing it for me, and it's the one property I know about, so it should have been automatically like, oh, this is great. Well, Tale of the Borderlands, I would tell you, I would recommend to anyone listening. I mean, it really is a great, funny, it's got kind of, you'd love it, Si, because it's right down your kind of writing junket, this kind of almost sci-fi, almost Borderlands, wastelandy kind of thing in the future, comedy, that Harry Hamlin sort of stuff, kind of like this sort of stuff you write as well. It's got that kind of, mix of stuff. You'd love it. One of your books turned into one of these games. You'd love it. Definitely.
Like Game of Thrones, going back to that for a second.
Yeah.
There's this guy I've been following. I think it's called Channel Awesome, where he talks about all kinds of Game of Thrones stuff. and it's usually like stuff from the books or stuff in the background or stuff I would be aware of. And he was talking about there was a war of the Targaryens, like hundreds of years before, and they were all like riding around on dragons, fighting each other and stuff. And I just thought, well, that should be a computer game. The reason they can't do it in the TV show, because they're talking about the prequel TV show now, because Game of Thrones, they're saying, is restricted to 7 seasons because that's what the actors are signed for, so they have to kind of end it then. So they're talking about making a prequel series because it's obviously the most popular thing on HBO. But they can't do that with the dragons because that would cost a fortune in CGI. But a computer game, it does. If you're drawing a dragon or you're drawing a dude, it doesn't matter. Like, that's the same cost. So they could have had this big war with all these dragons. You could be riding around on dragons, and you could still have the politics beside it. You don't have to be. You could be one of these contenders to take over the throne 500 years before the TV show happens, and you wouldn't have to be this piddling little noble house with 20 guards. You could be like one of the main contenders in the kingdom. It could be actually interesting, but from what it is, like, I just don't see myself playing it. I don't have that much time to play computer games. If I play, like I'm playing Darkest Dungeons, and if I play for 2 minutes and I press escape and exit the desktop, it's saved everything I've done. That Telltale game, it's like, I don't know, 40 minutes between saves. If I have to go and take Alex out in the garden or something, well, then I've lost everything I've done. It's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I do agree that there's long period, like every episode is kind of 2.5 hours, right? And particularly Game of Thrones, they're longer even. Like, but I definitely think it's like there's an obvious chapter where they go, oh, we've moved from Simon to Michael. Okay, that's a save point. But it can be 15 to 20 minutes between that time, and it's like, well, a lot of that stuff you just don't want to replay again. It's not like something like some sort of platform where you go, okay, well, part of the skill is the fun is doing this. The fun is not to replay stuff you've already decided about before and trying to remember what you said the first time round. So I agree with that 100%. Definitely.
Like I mentioned on the thing, like I've just had a week of disappointing stuff. So the Game of Thrones game and the new HBO comedies and all this kind of stuff, where I've just kind of gone, why am I doing this when I've got so I've started reading more just because I'm going, well, TV shows I'm not interested in. This computer game I bought I'm not interested in. I'll go read a book.
No, well, it's funny you say that, because I mean, I was complaining about, not just last week, but the week before, like I really, I don't have a lot going on at work at the moment, although we all do, I guess. But for whatever reason, I'm finding it incredibly difficult to catch up, like even like on stuff that like I've effectively recorded or put aside to watch, whether that be internet stuff, whatever. As for playing games, just not a chance, like not a chance. I mean, I've pre-ordered, I know you're going to kill me for that, a lot of games that are coming out, like Halo. Like I went crazy over E3. I said, right, I'm pre-ordering Halo. It's like, this is brilliant. It's October though, so I paid for Halo. It's
but
like pre-order. I'll look forward to that, but I'm going to do stuff between now and then. I have so many games on the backlog at the moment. Now that this backward compatibility is coming to Xbox, when that finally rolls out, there's so many games like I already have backlogged, which I kind of cancelled. It's crazy. I actually own Batman Arkham Asylum, or the new Batman that's been launched, but I haven't even downloaded it yet. It's a 45 gig download, and I'm like, ugh. Anyway, Batman moving from Game of Thrones onto the PC world. Batman broken on PC. So we're not going to go into any great detail, but I mean, just on that, like Steam are, it's effectively been recalled. Rocksteady, seemingly the ports on the PS4 and Xbox, which is obviously their primary market to begin with, seems to be fine. Even though they developed it clearly on PC to port down to these guys, they paid no attention. They should have delayed the PC release for maybe 3 weeks to get it right, because they're having huge problems with drivers left, right, and center. So there was no playtesting being done for the PC port.
The
totally
Steam refunds thing has bitten them in the ass, essentially. They were going, screw the PC players, screw it. We'll do like a patch in 6 months' time, and maybe it'll fix it, maybe it won't, but they can't do anything about it. oh wait, they can just get a refund. Okay, well then we're really screwed. We'll have to make them a working game.
Yeah, and in fairness, this is exactly what you were saying to me a couple of weeks ago, when I was like, going, "Oh, this is a bit of a, whatever." Like Steam refunds for games that are broken, I do enjoy. That's not necessarily just try them for an hour and give them back if there's something mechanically wrong with them. But definitely in this place, this is where the power has come back to the people via Steam, and Steam should be applauded for that. I mean, they're apologizing left, right, and center over this whole debacle. And it really is. This is a game that was delayed several times already.
Mm.
So like, I don't know, it's meant to be a good game, but it doesn't work on PC at the moment.
Like, to go to your point there, like Game of Thrones, as I say, I don't enjoy, but I wouldn't return it. I just go, oh, I didn't enjoy that. Exactly. Whereas if I had bought Game of Thrones and it crashed all the time, or it was juddering like the Batman videos they've been showing, I go, okay, screw that, I'm getting a refund. No. So, I mean, me personally, at least, I wouldn't return something if I don't enjoy it, but it's a good game, I'm just not enjoying it. But I definitely return something if it's broken, and I think that's really going to have a huge impact on these AAA developers, because they're the worst culprits. Like if you've got some,
they're getting too much bad press, and then they've got the bad press. They would just use their community manager to get over. But now with this, if it's going to pinch them in the ass, that in terms of they've marketed all this for this day. So if it gets delayed on PC, or say it got delayed on Xbox for a month, they've wasted all of their targeted advertising. So I think they're going to learn the lesson. There's been this whole last 12 to 18 months, there's been far too many broken games coming out on all platforms. Usually not the PC consoles, but I think the time for this sort of crap is going to go. It was a huge problem for Microsoft when they launched the Master Chief Collection. They got a lot of criticism for that, and I mean, Halo Master Chief Collection worked fine if you were only playing single player. It was brilliant, as I told you about before. The online stuff didn't work. I have no doubt that when the Halo 5 game launches in October, I'll have no interest in multiplayer. But let me tell you this, multiplayer will not be broken, because people will lose their jobs over this. Microsoft have invested far too much money in relation to this stuff, and they don't want another PR disaster, which that PR disaster has hounded them for 6 months and almost tanked a very valuable franchise. They won't want anything.
They don't care about the community manager's stress level or what the fans think or whatever. It's how many copies did we sell? Like they said, the Alien Isolation game was a failure because it sold 3 million copies. They care about the bottom line. If it impacted the bottom line, if people went, oh, well, I'm not buying Halo 5 because Halo 4 was broken or whatever it happens to be, then they would care. But that doesn't happen. People keep buying the newest Call of Duty. Call of Duty's numbers aren't flagging, and they've brought out endless broken games.
Yeah, but even Call of Duty, well, I mean, I'm critical of your point, which I am. I pre-ordered Halo 5, but again, I kind of went and played it for the single player and the opt-in, opt-out co-op. But I agree with you. I mean, I'm not following my own advice in that regard. But at the same time, I don't think. I mean, if they were to screw this up again, they could literally terminate the franchise. But I agree with you. It is down the bottom.
So I used to play in this tournament for Call of Duty, and
Call of Duty sales are going down.
Yeah, but at this stage they're going down. But I'm talking about if you went back to Call of Duty World at War, and people said, well, I'm not going to buy Modern Warfare 2 then because I didn't enjoy World at War. I enjoyed World at War, by the way. I thought it was a good game, but most people didn't. They said, I'm not going to buy Modern Warfare 2 because I didn't enjoy World at War, and I'm not going to give them any more of my money. Call of Duty 4 was a great game. I'm just going to keep playing that. And then all of these people on my Steam list, the day Modern Warfare 2 came out, playing Modern Warfare 2, playing Modern Warfare 2, playing Modern Warfare 2, they had all said, I will not buy this game, or I'll buy it on a sale, or I'll do whatever. No.
Are you playing Modern Warfare 3 when it comes out in October?
Am I going to play? I'm not going to play any more of Call of Duty games because they were just copy pasting. Like World at War was great. Treyarch got a lot of stake for it, but it was a really good game. Modern Warfare 2 was terrible. And then Black Ops, Treyarch's game after that, was really good. And then it was Modern Warfare 3, or was it Advanced Warfare or whatever. Anyway, I went, no, screw it, I'm not buying any more of these games.
Okay, well, we're to 40 minutes on the show, so I just want to talk to you very briefly about a couple of new shows that you identified. Bowlers, just this last week, it's a show with The Rock. I looked at the trailer on YouTube, and you describe it as entourage football players. Is he kind of, did you ever watch Ray Donovan, where he's kind of a fixer for the movie stars type of thing? Is it similar to that?
I haven't watched Ray Donovan, but I don't. If you've seen Entourage, it is just Entourage. Like Entourage ended for HBO. They brought out their movie a month ago or whatever it was. So they went. This is like someone went. Okay, Entourage was popular. How about we copy paste Entourage with new people in it? And instead of them trying to break into the movies, they're trying to break into football, American football, and otherwise it's exactly the same show. Like it's a photocopy of the same show, and I don't know, like Heidi and I were watching it, and there was just nude women all the time, and I went, well, you can tell you're watching HBO. I mean, women just have their boobs out for no reason at all in this show.
Well, let's talk about it. That doesn't sound like it's in any way interesting. The Brink, it's a show with Jack Black, kind of meant to be a comedy. Meant to be the president, is that right? Or some sort of
no. So he's in Pakistan when a military coup breaks out. Pakistan obviously have nuclear weapons, so he's the only CIA operative on the ground who can possibly do anything about it. But he's only there because of nepotism, so he's not actually good as a spy or anything.
Yeah, that's good. Like Chuck.
Huh?
Chuck.
Yeah, but Chuck was a good show. This is a terrible show. And there isn't a single joke in it. Again, there's women with their boobs out for no reason. Like, on Game of Thrones and stuff like that, there's sometimes very weak reasons, but there's always a reason. On Bowlers and on The Brink, it was just, okay, guys, we can show boobs, so let's show boobs. Like, it's just no reason to be showing boobs on this show. It was as if they were trying to substitute boobs for jokes, and it just didn't work at all. And Heidi and I didn't even watch the full episode. We gave up about 20 minutes in and just went, this is just terrible. It's not funny at all.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously that's not a recommendation. You're already starting off, but I mean, if there's nothing even to talk about, I haven't seen them.
Well, I saw a review of the whole season.
Yeah.
On Vulture, and they said it started off okay and got worse from there, and the later episodes were way worse than the first episode. So I went, well, I dodged a bullet there, because the first episode was atrocious. If the later episodes are worse, I can't imagine how boring and terrible it is.
Well, these shows get greenlit, but other great shows or critically acclaimed shows get cancelled. So there's news this week that Hannibal, which I know you've been talking about a lot on the show, is cancelled after this season 3. And obviously you were sad about that, but there's some new hopeful in some respects and unhopeful in other respects that there's talks for season 4 and Hannibal on maybe living on another platform. Talk about Netflix, talk about Amazon. There's a recent IGN article.
They can't do Netflix from the article because they're on Amazon Instant in the US, and that's, I mean, with shows like that, they concentrate in the US primarily because they're made in the US, whereas like Hannibal's on Netflix in Norway, and I'm sure it's probably on Netflix in the UK and places as well, because they don't have, Amazon doesn't do instant video here, so they can sell to Netflix here.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that is depending on what the time exclusivity, if there is one, is in the deal. That certainly would offer Netflix coming in, because they'll say, well, screw you. But that puts a greater emphasis on Amazon to greenlight this production. You know, maybe they will.
Don't, like, so Hannibal is not a small comedy. Like, I think I haven't seen how much Amazon stuff. The stuff I saw that Amazon was producing was like small kind of comedies where it's, you know, single camera stuff. I don't know if they've moved on from that, but Hannibal is a very complicated show with a lot of actors and a lot of visual effects and all kinds of stuff in it that I would guess costs a lot more than a single camera comedy.
Yeah, and some of these actors, I mean, these actors are not, they have careers. They've been in movies. They're not going to be cheap. Look, I think there's obviously legal impediments, and there's probably exclusivity deals. There's also a complicating factor in that my understanding is he wanted season 4 to have some reference to Clarice Starling, etc. And there's a further rights issue in relation to that if he was to even continue down that path. Now, it seems to me that maybe the Amazon deal might expunge itself in 18 months. But and then maybe there would be an option for somebody other than Amazon to sort of come in and say, okay, well, we're Netflix, we want to put season 1 to 3 on our show now, and we'll produce whatever. But in 18 months, the interest may be gone, and everyone may have floated off the four corners of the world.
Lawrence Fishburne is in it, and Mads Mikkelsen is in it, and is it Hugh Darcy? No, it's Hugh something, and they, are going to get film offers because they're really good actors. I mean, you can't I have to imagine that they could easily be on to something else by the time anyone else could pick it up. Hugh Dancy, not Hugh Darcy. Who is excellent.
Gillian Anderson, I mean, I'm not sure if she's still there. I've not watched it, but I mean, oh, look, there's a cast there that...
Gillian Anderson's will be one of the main characters in season 3. I haven't seen season 3. It's on episode 3 or something by now.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, you're absolutely right. I mean, even if there was a deal that could be unraveled in time, time moves on, and it's very hard, even if you can get over those legal impediments, then to get everybody back together. For instance, Longmire was cancelled and then taken by Netflix. But even that has meant that Longmire will have finished season 3, and by the time season 4 gets on, unless they get their act together very quickly, I know they've already started filming it. It seems to be Netflix. I think it'll probably work out okay. But what you don't want is like all of a sudden your season 3 and season 4 comes along, a year and a half later. Sometimes people have moved on, and so
the ideal thing would be for Amazon to say. So Netflix, according to the IGN article, have expressed interest for Amazon to say, listen, we'll simulcast. Yeah, we will give you the rights to make season 4 if you give us simulcast rights for showing season 4 at the same time as you show it. So you make the episodes, and either you're going to release them all at once, or you're going to release them every week, and we release them at the same time on Amazon.
But even if that was doable, even if that financially was doable, which maybe it would be, but would be less advantageous. But even if it was, they don't want to. I mean, those two are pitted against each other. Like Amazon would prefer to just not let Netflix have it at all and just keep their minimal. Well, we just have season 1 to 3 on ours then, in America. They'd prefer to say that,
But yeah, I mean, in a way, but Amazon, I think especially, are never shy of making a profit.
Yeah.
Like if they figured out, listen, our customers want to see season 4, but we can't do it. Netflix customers want to see season 4, and they're not. So say, for instance, Netflix said, we'll take season 4, but we won't be able to show seasons 1 to 3 because that's already on Amazon Instant. So we'll show season 4, and you can have 1 to 3.
I don't think that would be a problem for Netflix. I just think that clearly the season 1 to 3 deal has some sort of exclusivity right in relation to, presumably what Amazon did was they signed up to 1, 2, and 3 with an option for 4, right?
Mm.
And that means that they're going, well, we don't give a shit if Netflix make it, but they won't be able to put it on their fucking platform. They'll have to put it on ours. And Netflix are going, no, we're not going to spend all the money. I mean, I'm speculating, but I can imagine that was like, no, I'm not going to spend all the money in respect of that to be tied into a deal you already have, which may be quite good financially for you. But remember, this is not a show that was earning loads of money. It got cancelled. So,
but TV studios have done that all the time. Like Fox will make a show and then it's shown on NBC or...
it clearly wasn't making big money, they would have kept it. You know what I mean? So I mean, they couldn't make money alone on that, I would have thought.
Well, it's the old-fashioned model. I mean, there was a article I saw today about cable companies, and their profits are just going.
Exactly.
People go, why the hell am I paying for this?
Absolutely, we've talked about this before. For cachet reasons, Netflix might want this show, but insofar as it would be exclusive to their platform, you know, that's the cachet. That's what keeps people signed up to their show, £7 every month or whatever it happens to be. But there's not, even if they weren't earning any money other than keeping people subscribed, you know, it's not great if Amazon are showing it as well. I mean, can I just put it this way? One of the things, we'll move on to the topic. Let's just end it on this. Let's hope that it finds a place and it gets to season 4 as a minimum, wherever that may be, whether that be on some other cable network, maybe HBO. It was NBC that cancelled it, wasn't it? So maybe HBO will take it on, or you know, maybe AMC or some other show. Maybe, you just never know. What's interesting is, and this will be the real kicker to you, which is NBC have renewed a serial killer.
Your microphone is gone. Whatever you're doing, you're playing with it, I think.
NBC have renewed a serial killer type of show today, but it's season 2 of Aquarius with David Duchovny, right? Not Hannibal. So yeah, exactly. I mean,
I haven't heard of it. Like Hannibal, again, what I said about True Detective, I'm not into crime shows.
Yeah.
It has to be different than a normal crime show for me to watch. So I don't know about anything about Aquarius.
Yeah.
Presumably it's about the Gemini.
Absolutely right, Simon. I mean, we were saying it's set in this kind of 70s kind of period. You know, so there's an element of, oh, True Detective, that was good. Let's repackage that with a new story and put David Duchovny in it. Yeah, that'll have sort of foreshadowing of Hannibal because Gillian Anderson's in that, and everyone will be happy. It'll be like the X-Files back on TV again.
The Zodiac Killer, isn't that it?
Yeah,
like Zodiac was the Fincher movie. It was great.
Yeah.
We've already seen that. We don't need to see it again.
Zodiac, no, totally. Funny enough, I came across a new trailer for something on Netflix. Again, they're knocking out the park. No idea what this is about. It's called Narcos. It's meant to air on the 28th of August. Narcos is a true story of U.S. and Colombian efforts in the 80s to battle Pablo Escobar and the drug cartel. So that's an interesting show. And it just comes back to what we've talked about, which is, like, don't get me wrong, Netflix are just killing it. I mean, like, I still haven't finished House of Cards. I still haven't finished Grace and Frankie. Still haven't even started season 3 of Orange is the New Black. I mean, crazy. Even that alone would take me, you know, a while to get up to date on. And there's new shows coming on all the time. And Longmire is coming up very soon. And there's huge rumors that they're going to have a new show with Jeremy Clarkson, the Top Gear crew.
Really?
Yeah, because obviously you've heard about all the controversy on BBC, and Chris Evans is taking over that role. That's been announced this week.
Who's going to watch it? Seriously. Hey, here's a guy who beats the crap out of his aides for not getting a mistake. You want to watch a show?
Well, I'd watch it. I like Jeremy Clarkson. I like
Top Gear, but like, I've had this conversation with people before. Like, I can't separate the creator from the creation. So if I find out that some guy is like...
he didn't put the guy in hospital, you know?
He punched the crap out of some lowly aide and expected to get away with it, which...
Nah, he punched the guy. The guy got over it, you know?
See, that's the same as like the Michael Jackson stuff or all that kind of stuff. Like when I find out that something like that
I'm not sure where you're going with the Michael Jackson.
I'm not saying Jeremy Clarkson was interfering with small children. I'm saying that when I find out that a creator is doing nasty things, there is a certain line. So say someone says something objectionable.
Simon, incident, which may have happened several times, but ultimately this boils down to an isolated incident, which should never have happened. I agree with you 100%. But he is a bit of a dinosaur. But I like him for that. You know, is he the worst person in the world? No. Is he a complete and utter Egypt? He is, of course he is. That's kind of what I like about him.
But if I was at work and say I screw something up and I mess up my and my boss punches me, He should lose his job and should never work in an IT department again.
He should lose his job
and go to prison for well, at least go to.
Even if he was convicted of an offence, he wouldn't go to prison.
No, I'm not saying prison. I'm saying he should go to court. I misspoke.
But even if he did, so what? He'd pay a fine. You know, it would never go to court.
If someone punched me and they didn't, like, they lost their job and they got a better job, I'd be so pissed.
Look, the truth is, I hope it happens on Netflix. We'll see what happens, right? The great thing with Netflix,
won't be watching. But
yeah, well, you know, you'll protest. You could protest in silence. 7 Days in Hell is a kind of a comedy skit tennis show with Kip Harrington and Andy Samberg, which does
looks like a little kid, by the way, without his beard.
He always does, though, doesn't he?
Well, when he had the Jon Snow beard,
yeah,
he looked kind of older. Without the beard, he looks like he's 16.
Yeah, no, totally, and even the overdoing the English accent, etc. It's quite funny. Yeah. I think it's an interesting. It looks kind of cool. It looks kind of cool. Now, you know, whether it'll stand up, you know, we'll see. Like, you know, these comedy things, often the best jokes are in the trailer, and that can be, you know, how long can you do the same joke thing, you know, for whatever.
Oh, that reminded me, just a brief mention. I watched Jim Jeffries' new stand-up on Netflix. You should go watch that this week. It's really funny. It's kind of reminded me of Chris Rock's stuff about gun control and that kind of stuff. It's really funny.
Jim Jeffries. Okay, absolutely. So we've kind of covered a lot of topics coming up on the hour mark. There was a couple of things that you spotted along the way. This thing about Skylon, which was you've got a Wikipedia page in respect to this. Is this some sort of a rocket ship or?
Yeah, it's really cool. And I mean, it's only so this guy has been trying to get this off the ground since the early 80s. It's a reusable kind of plane where it flies up to as high as planes can go, and then it just goes vertical and goes like a rocket and goes straight up into the atmosphere. And it's only in experimental stages, but they reckon at the moment it costs $15,000 to get a kilo, I think. Or maybe it was a pound. I think it's a kilo into space up to the ISS or whatever. And this would cost $650 per kilo. So it would dramatically reduce the cost of putting things up in space if it works. It's a European thing as well, which would be really good because the Americans aren't investing anymore. So if the European Space Agency managed to reduce the cost of getting things up there, we could have loads more space stuff, which I'm, as someone who loves all the space exploration stuff, that'd be cool.
Well, it would be certainly interesting, especially with sci-fi kind of coming back, a serious sci-fi with that Interstellar and stuff like coming back into vogue. And I know that's going to take a bit of a dip when we get into Star Wars craziness at the end of the year. But it's certainly interesting to see. You know, it's very funny. For the last 10 years, there's been very little from, you know, NASA. But over the last while, we've seen a lot more reports from, you know, that particular drone that was landed on a comet that went dead, and it's now been reactivated. And we're seeing more photographs from, you know, rovers on Mars and other satellites. So we're certainly seeing a little bit more exploration. It'd be interesting to see if man does want to sort of go the further distance and actually do something. Because as we all are aware, that once we got to the moon, it became uninteresting. You know, in terms of the big players like NASA from moving on to the second major mission. You know, but it would be interesting to still. I mean, we weren't alive when the moon landings, etc. Obviously, but it would be interesting if, you know, before we passed along to a next generation, that there'd be some other missions of some significance. It would be kind of cool. I mean, I wonder. I mean, I was born in '75. I wonder what it was like in '69. I mean, in '69, there were TVs around the world. There's no doubt about that. I wonder if my mother, you know, watched TV in Ireland in '69 live at this thing, or were they just getting a bulletin report? You know, 3 or 4 days later, it probably was that way. You know what I mean? I just simply can't conceive of that. But you know, whether it was more news over the airwaves, it probably was. But I mean,
we're explorers. I mean, that's the whole history of humanity. Is we're in Africa, and then we went, let's explore, and went up to Europe and Asia, and, you know, kept exploring and exploring and exploring, and like this is the next thing to explore, and there's been so much discovery and invention and all kinds of stuff around space, but people don't. Well, I would say in America at least, there's been a very strong anti-education, anti-science movement from the right wing. That the same. I've been talking work a lot about this as well. Like, so in the Middle East was far in advance of Europe in 900 AD, around then. And then it went ultra religious and fell behind because it was, no, science is bad, religion is good, let's concentrate on religion. And they fell way behind. Whereas Europe had the Renaissance and started concentrating on art and less on religion and science. And America is doing the same thing. It's becoming very right-wing religious. And they're kind of forgetting about the fact that the reason they were the biggest economy in the world was because they were inventing stuff and because they were going to the moon. And I really hope that Europe is going to keep investing more and more money in space exploration. I think it's a very worthwhile thing, far more worthwhile than bombing the crap out of people.
As much as people, entrepreneurs like the Branson Project, Richard Branson and all of his thing, you can't rely, even no matter how wealthy he is and people like him, and they are extremely wealthy, you know, the kind of money that needs to come from a state agency, like a NASA-funded type of thing, because you can't just expect somebody, privateers, because there are a bunch of projects about these sort of projects about, you know, private space flight, etc. That's all very worthy, and frankly, if it wasn't for them, there is nobody driving it on a statewide level. You don't have this kind of race between Russia and America. So it's great that is happening, but you're going to need some state intervention in relation to that. Currently, at the moment, most countries are just trying to get themselves out of the worldwide recession. But even prior to all of that, there was very little interest in it either. So it'd be interesting.
The recession's been going on, but at the same time as 2 wars for America.
Yeah, but
like pointless wars that they didn't need to spend money on.
Time for war, unfortunately.
But but that's again the rise of the right wing in America. That's the problem.
I think that America is very divided. It certainly is a big right-wing element, and that's part of the political divide. It's not necessarily the Obama political divide that got into power, but again, the margins are very tight. You know, I mean, normally you look at that really right wing and just say, hang on a second, why are they getting any votes at all? And
Obama's right wing.
They may not. Yeah, the Tea Party are a massive movement there. They didn't.
Well, just say Obama is right wing. So Obama in Norway would be a far right wing candidate.
He's not religious right wing in the way that you're talking about.
No. So there's two factions to it. There's corporatist right wing and there's religious right wing. Corporatist right wing is using the religion to stir up support, and using race as well. But the corporations don't care. As long as they get support and get their tax breaks, they'll be quite happy. The Republicans are trying to push for a flat tax.
I mean,
but anyway, we're getting way off entertainment.
Way off. We're talking about Obama. I mean, is liberal, but liberal in America is still right wing. You know, in comparison to a European thing.
Well, look at health. I mean, his major thing is the Obamacare thing. That is a mandate that everyone needs to buy private insurance. It's not public. It's not public insurance like we have.
Yeah, but in Ireland, it's a movement towards self-insurance. I mean, like it's an economic sort of package.
Well, Ireland's going right wing too. That's the thing.
What existed before Obama was no healthcare, so there was no state healthcare. You know,
sure, but he's
moving it to what we would require or call restrictive, but in comparison to where it was before, it was like if you have not paid, you have nothing. You have no healthcare. That's, you know, it's actually moving towards the dial a different direction. But we're not a political podcast.
Yeah,
we don't know anything about American politics in any great detail, other than to say they can have it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to go far right wing, the problem is they drag a lot of people with them and drone the crap out of them.
Well, they do. But anyway, that is the end of episode 18 of the Pundit podcast. And again, you can get me on @BadBarrister on Twitter if you want to catch me up and ask me any questions or ask questions for next week's show. You can get Simon on @Canton at Twitter and simoncanton.com. You can check out all of his cool merch, some of his books. You can buy them there, or links to buy. And is there any special deals going on this particular month? Sorry.
I just have my usual that the first books in the series are free. And email subscribers, if you join my email list, you get the second books for free too. So that's a pretty good deal.
Free sounds like a pretty good deal to me. You can also catch some of Simon's writings. Obviously, you have a blog going on that particular site as well, where you deal with sort of up-to-date sort of stuff, not just your books. And I know, well, actually, one of the things you were looking at, or certainly you were retweeting this week, was about the Stephen King story that we never got to talk about. But that was quite interesting. Maybe we'll talk about that on a different episode. I know you've been reading some of his stuff at the moment, and I don't know if you posted a blog post about that. Did you?
Huh?
Did you post a blog post about that, or is it just?
Yeah, I've done a couple of blog posts about the book. Now, the book came out in 2001, so it's not like it's breaking news. So we can definitely wait for a future episode. But it is very interesting. I'd recommend. It's called On Writing.
Yeah, and I saw anyway. You were doing blog posts on that. You find blog posts dealing specifically with that on your site. So that's really good. As I said, episode 18 is down in the can. It should be out on iTunes in a while. And again, you can get it up on the YouTube channels and on this Google stuff. Again, you can contact myself and Simon over the next week, in between week, and ask us to try and deal with specific topics if there's anything in particular you want us to deal with, and we will try and oblige. So, use the social media. That's what it's there for. Anyway, on to that. We're on to the episode 19 next week, and we'll see you then.
Hi, everyone.
See ya.